What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Drop-In. And as always, we have the most amazing guest stopping in our Better Rate Mortgage studios here on Woodward. And I got to thank the Woodward Sports Network because they let us use this studio whenever we want, pretty much. Sam, thank you so much. Joey, freaking easy, has been priceless. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But on this episode of The Drop-In, I got to tell you, the guests that come through here, they always, almost always will be like, you know, it would be great on your show, and they'd give me a name. And that's how Pat, actually, how we were introduced. A past guest, Jeff Scroggs, said, you know what? I think you and Pat would get along great. And I'll tell you what, from the first conversation, we were like, dude, you like hockey? You like punk rock? You like skateboarding? You like music? There was so many similarities, so I want to thank Jeff Scroggs as well for making the introduction, and I want to introduce you guys to my friend Pat. And Pat, I didn't ask you before we sat down here, proper pronunciation of your last name?
Yes, it's Deneau.
Deneau. All right, I was right.
Yeah,
I was right.
Yeah, it's French-Canadian. You watch hockey, right? So
Yeah.
you've probably seen that name somewhere in the NHL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how was your day, man? It was a okay day here in southeastern Michigan. How was your day?
Yeah, it was good. I took advantage of the nice weather. Super stoked that now that we're into May, maybe the snow is gone and the sun's kind of peeking through a little bit. Got out for a bike ride, did some tours around the house, and yeah, feels good.
Dude, the awesomest. We're in May, and maybe the snow's gone. Michigan, man, it's like, you know, most of the eastern United States, actually northeastern United States, the snow, I think the latest, I did some research, actually, and the latest was the second week of May. We got some snow back in 1920s.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can come anytime.
It could happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I like living in Michigan. I've lived many different places in the state of Michigan, and I dig it. Like, I like that there are like 4 hard seasons. You know, when springtime rolls around, like after winter is just finishing, you're like, oh man, okay, like that's why we endured this winter, was to like enjoy the sunshine some more. So yeah, I feel like it builds character, and it's sort of, you know, there are seasons of life, and there are physical seasons around us here in Michigan, and yeah, I dig it. I'm stoked to maybe get out skateboarding here, and
Yeah.
yeah, get a little sunburn.
Yeah, we're getting into that season, and it's awesome. Here in southeastern Michigan, we have skateboard parks everywhere. Thanks to the Tony Hawk Foundation, we have them. I mean, within a 10-mile radius, we probably have 10 parks now,
Yeah.
and it's very accessible, and all ages from, you know, 5-year-old boys and girls to 50, 60, 70-year-olds out in Ann Arbor coming out and rolling around.
Yeah, I've seen
It's
those guys.
it's awesome.
Yeah, it's killer. I live pretty close to Riley, so that's like my home park, and it's kind of cool that no matter where you live in Metro Detroit, you can kind of have like a home base.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, my wife and I used to live in Ferndale, very close to Geary Park. Like, I could almost like throw a baseball and hit that new skate park that's there now.
Oh yeah.
It got built the summer that we left, that we moved over to the west side of town. That park's really killer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like, you know, those transition style sort of things. But yeah, and if you're on the east side, there's a couple parks over there, and
Yeah, it's a different time than it was when I was coming up in the 80s, when you were chasing backyard ramps, and you'd hear a fable of a half pipe or something somewhere, and you would go on a mission, where now you could pretty much have a map, and all across the state you could hit different parks within. You won't drive more than an hour without hitting a cement skate park. So everybody watching this from across the United States, come visit Michigan.
Yeah.
Come on out, especially if you're a skateboarder. If you're not a skateboarder, come out and enjoy the seasons. I mean, in October, you got the leaves changing. It is such a rad place. And Pat actually grew up north in Michigan, which is like a winter wonderland. And I'm super interested to know how it was growing up there, because so many people, when they talk about up north in Michigan, it's a vacation conversation.
Yeah.
And so how was it growing up in northern Michigan?
yeah, that's a great question. So I grew up in a little town called Walloon Lake, which is like right between Petoskey and Boyne City.
Way up north.
Yeah, you're looking on the hand map here, it's up here. And so in the 90s, there really wasn't like this Tim Allen-esque sort of like northern Michigan, where the winters are beautiful every single day, and the summers are filled with wine tours and blah, blah, like that. It really wasn't quite like that, at least for me when we grew up there. It was great, and my sister Liz and I spent probably 24 hours a day outside, it seemed like. Like, I have little to no memories of being inside. Like, even in the middle of winter, we just found stuff to do outside. We got to snowboard a lot and ski. My dad was a ski patroller at Boyne Mountain. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, so spent a lot of time at the 2 different Boyne skiing resorts. Yeah, and it was cool. Did a lot of fishing. My grandpa lived up there, too. He retired in Petoskey after working for the Detroit News and then Channel 7 here in Detroit, maybe at the end of the 70s, early 80s. So we had family up there, and it was great. But what I will say is it is difficult to really find a living up there, too. So like you're saying, it is very much a tourist sort of place, and it's great in the summertime. But, like, oftentimes all those downstate people from around here or wherever head back home, and then, you know, the economy maybe takes a dip.
Right.
You know, and then, you know, you get some skiers and stuff like that in the wintertime, but the economy up there is very much based in the pure Michigan.
Right. The tourism
yeah.
drives it, especially, you know, going up that way. There are a bunch of ski resorts, and we have some world-class golf courses throughout. But outside of that, there's those in-between times that the industry is downstate.
Yeah. And so I think my parents ultimately struggled with that, and we lived up in that area for probably, I don't know, maybe 12 years anyway. And I think it's like they knew that it was going to benefit my sister and I being able to be like out in nature and enjoy like a slower lifestyle, and be close to my grandpa who was up there, and it was great. But you know, I'm growing my own family, and I'm looking at, like, how did they make ends meet all the time? Like, how did they continue to put food on the table year-round? Like, you know, a lot of service industry jobs. My dad had a side job putting in docks at some of the resort homes. So, like, his regular job was as a printing pressman in the printing industry, running big, like, 4-color Heidelberg presses and stuff like that. And in the summertime, to make some extra cash, you would go and put in docks, and my mom waited tables and stuff like that on the side. So yeah, it was amazing, and like part of me wants to get back there, and like I would love to maybe live in an area like that. But I know that, you know, our jobs are here and the industry is here, and yeah, so we make it up at least once a year anyway, and take my daughter Isla around and show her where I grew up, and
cool.
Yeah, I go to the beach and stuff like that.
And it's a beautiful area up there. I spent some time in Honor. Up in that area. Yeah. And you have the Sleeping Bear sand dunes. You have, I mean, that little pinky part of Michigan has got some amazing things. You're not far from the Mackinac Bridge. I mean, it's awesome. But yeah, you know, when you got to make ends meet, unless you're a school teacher for a community that has enough kids to even, you know, fill up a school, or you are something that's important to that city or township, industry isn't huge up there. And so finding a way to pay the bills has got to be a challenge.
Yeah. It's something I think about frequently. It's something I kind of think about writing songs about too.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you brought up your mom, and you had mentioned her Native American heritage.
Yeah.
Did that play a big role in your upbringing?
Yeah, it certainly did at times, and then other times not so much. And that's something that like we're kind of like figuring out, like even in this very moment. And so my mom grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, which is in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. It's a whole other peninsula. Across the Mackinac Bridge, and that area is a very heavy Native American area. The Sioux tribe of Chippewa Indians is our tribe, and my mom grew up right in town there. So living in the Petoskey area, we were close, and we would go up and visit family in the Sioux frequently. Like we'd go there for Christmas and things like that. But I will say, like, even though I knew that we were Native and that my mom's parents were Native, all my cousins were, it wasn't something that was, like, often talked about. You know what I mean? Like we didn't do a lot of the traditional native stuff that you would see like in textbooks and things
Right,
like
like,
that.
or people giving blankets at
Yeah,
Christmas or having a traditional,
yeah,
celebratory meal or things of that nature.
exactly. Like we didn't follow a lot of those traditions, and like as I've learned more about the culture and had more discussions with my mom about it, she has sort of come up with the concept that when her parents were growing up in Sault Ste. Marie, it was almost like, hey, you know what? Maybe let's not. We don't need to be doing a lot of this stuff. Like, let's just kind of go into town and just blend in with everybody else. And through that, it kind of gets passed down, and then culture gets lost.
Well, and historically, traditionally, that divide did cause some conflict in certain places, and Native Americans were treated differently, and maybe to separate themselves a little bit more and become part of the culture wherever that was
Yeah,
downstate.
yeah.
That might be maybe the reason why.
Yeah, and so like it's a tough thing to tackle at times because part of me I'm trying to pass down native traditions and cultures to my daughter now, but like we didn't necessarily grow up with it in our house like on a regular basis, right?
Right.
I can tell you that one time my mom brought me into town, which was Petoskey, to join a drum circle, and the native band there, the Odawa Indians there, they were I guess like, hey, come on down and try this out, and it was at like a middle school in town. So I don't know, I was maybe in the fifth or sixth grade or something, maybe showing some general interest in music. And I said, oh well, this would be a good opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we went there, and like I was like overtaken by it. Like it was like so loud and so powerful, and there's probably only six guys sitting around this drum, and I'm like, man, like I really want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
how do I like let me in there, Um, but like I was intimidated, like I liked watching, but like I didn't know how to introduce myself or and my mom
Right.
didn't pressure me into it, which was great. Um, but that was the first time I was like, oh, okay, like yeah, like these sort of traditional elements are still happening, um, and like if I want to dig deeper into it, like it's there. My sister got really involved with the tribe, and she took Ojibwe language lessons at Michigan State.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and she was part of she was actually president of her Native American student organization at State, and she did some powwows and stuff when we were kids. So, like, it was there for
Mm.
sure. But like a lot of people ask me, like even nowadays, like, "Oh, you're Native American?" Like, wow, that's got like eagle feathers and stuff. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, well, that is a thing, but like
Right.
that's a real sacred thing.
Right.
Like you don't just like have a bunch of them around, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
so like there are elements of it that I'm connecting with and like trying to incorporate into my life,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, a lot of that can be traced back to our time in northern Michigan for sure.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the native culture is amazing. I've developed some strong friendships with some friends out in Albuquerque,
Oh,
in
cool.
Denver,
Yeah.
and done different events over the years. And just some of the tradition just blows me away. Blows me away because I've gotten to actually experience it and be a
Oh
part
yeah.
of it. And it's rad, especially when you start to find a way to intertwine it into your daily life, as little or as big as you need to,
Yeah.
just because staying connected to that, especially in this country, I think is so important. So
It's
important.
yeah, it's there's a it's fulfilling culture. It's taking care of your elders. It's taking care of Mother Nature. It's taking care of your body.
Yeah.
It's everything that they're talking about is good.
And it's
It,
living on purpose. There's a
yeah,
purpose to
yeah,
almost everything you do in
yeah,
the native culture, and I love that. I
yeah.
love that part about it.
Yeah. So I'll teach you an Ojibwe word. So Ojibwe is the language that our tribe speaks. So the Sioux tribe of Chippewa Indians up north uses Ojibwe as their main language, as do many other tribes in Michigan. So So I will say thank you to you for sort of understanding a little bit more about Native culture and appreciating it. And the way you say thank you is miigwech.
Miigwech.
Yeah. And if you're really thankful, is somebody say chi miigwech.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Ah,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Did you getting this? Educational show. The drop-in is educational. Yeah, I always say get your notebook out, write it down. And so remember these things. Remember the little lessons that you pick up here on the drop-in, especially with my boy Pat. And I want to thank you again for coming in today. It's always rad to meet new people, to have new stories and different things like that. Now, early in your teens, you had quite a transitional time because you guys moved into the Metro Detroit area, and coming from up north, that had to be quite a culture shift.
It was wild, yeah. I had been to Detroit before. In fact, I was born at Bon Secours, like on the east side in Grosse Pointe. And my parents' first house was actually in Detroit on the east side on Bishop Street. So we were sort of originally from Detroit, our family core was, and then we went up north when I was real young. Coming back to Detroit, like all of a sudden school was very hard. I remember like that was the first thing. The school district that I was in up north was great, but like nowhere near where I went to school when we came down here. It was much faster paced, and I remember specifically like struggling and going to one of my teachers. It was a science class, and I was in the 8th grade, and saying like, I understand that you're talking like to this class, and we have a textbook, but I have no idea what's going on in it. Like it just looks like a foreign language to me at this point. And I remember she was like, "Wow, like what do you mean? I don't understand. Like what do you none of this is familiar to you?" I'm like, "Absolutely not." Like, and that took a lot for me to say that, because yeah, like you want to succeed, you want to like pass the stuff like everybody else in your class, right?
But at that time, it's such a transitional time for anybody being in their early teens, and you don't want to get a reputation, and you don't want to step out of line. So that took quite a bit of fortitude to step up and say, I don't get it.
Yeah. And like, you're trying to make friends, right? And you're trying to fit in, and all my friends were still up north, So like, and now I don't understand what's going on at school, like,
right.
Yeah, so it was difficult on certain things, and like I remember, sometimes there'd be a fight and things like that. And, like I don't want to fight anybody, like please do not fight me.
Right.
I'd rather not. But maybe that stemmed from some of the learning issues that I was having, and I ended up getting it sorted out, and my parents found tutors for me, and I battled through it. But I'm thankful that we made the move when we did, because like Metro Detroit area is like I don't know, it's where I feel most at home,
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this is always awesome, because I love, especially if somebody is into skateboarding or got into skateboarding or punk rock, when they got into it is so important. If it's in their early childhood, in their teens, in their 20s, it's very indicative of the impact it's going to have on your life. And for you, when did Thrasher Magazine, skateboarding, punk rock get inserted into your life?
Yeah, so that probably runs right around this into when we moved to Metro Detroit from up north. I knew about skateboarding up north. I was a snowboarder as a young kid, and was definitely interested in skateboarding, but like in northern Michigan, like particular where I live, there were no curbs.
Right.
Like the little village or township that we lived in, like it was just houses. Like even if I wanted to like wax up a curb and just do like a 50-50, there was no place to do that.
Right.
Like I spent a lot of time in my parents' garage just like doing kickflips and pop shovels and things like that. So when we came to Metro Detroit, I fell in with some kids, like this rolling band of Viking children that were the coolest people I'd ever seen. I don't know, they had like cool skater shoes, and like this is after Jeanco jeans, but
yeah.
I don't know, like just a shirt that said America on it, and like I was like, oh man, I gotta started getting with them. So a real close buddy of mine, Andrew McGuire, who's a photographer now. He does a lot of like lifestyle, action sports type photography. He lives in Breckenridge area. He was one of the first guys that I kind of latched onto with skateboarding, and so I remember just starting to skateboard through my neighborhood and like kind of get back into it, right? And like, oh wow, like I can just skate down the street, and there's like a little downtown area, and there's curbs everywhere, and like, oh my god, there's stairs. And so I remember in school, kids would be like, yo, after school, we're gonna hit that four set at Ammerman, the elementary school, and I'm like, oh, we gonna do a four set today? I'm like, okay, yeah, no, you guys should have seen me up north. Just like 8 sets were everywhere. So four set, that's fine. Yeah, I can't wait to get there. And like everybody gets off the school bus and you meet at the spot. And like I remember just like really connecting with that group of kids, and like I remember specifically like thumbing through Thrasher magazine. I'd seen those magazines and skate videos there was one skate shop in Petoskey up north. Like I was afraid to touch it. Like I was afraid to like grab the magazine off the rack because like I was young, I was like in the 7th grade, and like it looked gnarly,
right?
But now all of a sudden kids had them in their backpacks, at school. Like, hey dude, look at this,
Right.
And I remember seeing like punk rockers in there. I don't even know what bands, maybe Descendants or All or something, and the pictures of people playing guitar and like people doing like stage dives mixed with pictures of dudes grinding down handrails.
Yeah.
Like that like just opened up my mind like in such a big way,
Yep. I similar experience. First time I ever saw Thrasher, Trans World. Thrasher was actually newsprint when I first started reading it,
sure.
and it would come off on your fingers.
Wow.
But seeing that together, not only skateboarding, but the culture that came with it, the artistic side of it, the guys drawing and creating art like I'd never seen before, the music that I had never heard before, but the soundtrack to the culture, that drew me in as much as anything. And for you, it even had a little bit of a bigger impact at a young age because guitar made its way into your life as well. But was that after high school? Or was that during high school when you picked up a guitar?
Yeah, so that was, it's almost like I started skateboarding for real, and then the magazines, and like, I don't know, it wasn't that long after Dookie came out, by Green Day. So like, I don't know, maybe 99 at this point. 2000, as I entered high school, I remember I needed a guitar. Like bad.
You didn't want one.
No.
You had to have it.
Yeah. Like it was just an important part of the whole process. Like, okay, cool, I got this skateboarding thing down pretty good, but like the whole package is gonna involve a guitar for me moving forward. And my dad took me to Wonderland Music, which is no longer there. It was on Novi Road, north of Grand River. Kind of by 96 there. Really cool old sign that's still there. Really cool Wonderland Music Plaza sign. And we went in there, and the budget was minimal. And I think it was for maybe Christmas or something. And my dad was always encouraging. My mom and dad were both encouraging of me pursuing arts, and like I was into photography and stuff like that already at that point. But so there was just a cheap red knockoff Strat. It just said Crestwood on it. I don't even know if that's a brand or what, but it wore off like fast, like the logo on there. So it just started with that Strat. I guess maybe early in the 9th grade, or between the 8th and 9th grade, summertime, and now I'm almost 36, and I still have that guitar.
It's crazy how instruments do that because when we talked before the show. And I didn't start playing drums till I was 18.
Okay.
And there was times when, if I was on the road or something, there was 5 years that I didn't play, but I would ask a friend, hold on to these. I'll be back for them.
Yeah.
I swear I'll be back for them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen with everybody who picks up a musical instrument. But so often somebody will pick up a harmonica, a washboard, a guitar, a set of drums, and it becomes something that they're passionate about that sticks with them for their whole life.
It does, yeah. It becomes an extension of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had similar times with guitar where, I don't know, maybe I was just like super focused on my career or whatever, and I don't know. I would look at the guitar, I would see it, I'm like, I don't know, like it's probably out of tune. Better not play it.
Right, right, right.
You know. So, but yeah, but when it comes back to you, it's like it's just part of you.
Yeah,
And
and it's like a book, in my opinion.
yeah,
Like you can read a book and it's like you loved it 20 years ago.
sure.
And you pick it up today and you love it, but you love it for different reasons. It means something different for you. And with a musical instrument, very similar, because in our early life, we might be into this gnarly, raging music and we just want to pound the crap out of it. And then later on, maybe you hone your craft. Maybe you're into a little bit more storytelling or something
Yeah.
else. And and I think that's one of the great benefits of a musical instrument.
It's killer. I recommend it for everyone, like just all people.
Yeah.
So many people tell me like, you know, so I'm a firefighter and I work with a lot of different firefighters on different shifts and stuff like that. And guys are always like, man, I couldn't do what you do, man. The way you play that guitar, that's wild. Like I just don't have I don't have a musical bone in my body. I'm like, you probably do.
Right.
You know, like just find it. Like pick up the harmonica. Like it might give you some joy.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're not looking for it, just play on a harmonica, and like all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, man, I felt good.
Right.
You know.
Right. Well, since we're talking about music, and you do have a guitar sitting right there,
Yeah.
would you like to play a track for our awesome drop-in
I
viewers?
would love to. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We might have to do a little manipulating. You know how it is. We're going to adjust the mic so you guys can hear it and all that kind of good stuff. But I would be honored if you would rock, because I love your band and what you're doing. And so this is a gem of a treat for myself as well.
Thanks, yeah.
So let's see if we can make sure everything gets picked up. I think that's actually in a pretty good shot. Are you going to play and sing?
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we can move this one around without dumping everything on the floor. Run over your head. Sweet. That's gonna work.
Cool. So yeah, we put out a record. My group, the City Lines, put out a record last November. It's called "Waiting on a Win," and super proud of it. It's 10 songs that we found a way to sort of all weave together that sort of tell one big story. So if you go back and listen to it, you know, there's some highs and lows and things like that. We released a couple singles off of it. This song I'm about to play is not one of them. And like, for some reason, this one sort of became everybody's favorite song in the group. And it's a self-referential song. And it's just a fun story I like telling. And it's called East Jordan Ironworks. We were in town back before they deemed it safe, you know, in the cast corridor. Our folks called it a dangerous place, and I can picture his face right now, smiling through crooked teeth. He had his flashlight in our eyes on the dimly lit side street. Most of my heart is beating to the sound of nostalgic nights in an empty downtown. Under flickering lights, we watch the city breathe in and out. Sitting on a curb, I look down and read East Jordan Ironworks. Woo! God knows what we were up to. Oh, we've done it a million times, someone else better drive. We'll follow Woodward up to the city line. And before I can let it go, I'll have a laugh thinking about my friends. Man, we were so in it back then. Memorizing maps and where the sidewalks crack. Most of my heart is beating to the sound of nostalgic nights in an empty downtown. Under flickering lights, we watch the city breathe in and out. Sitting on a curb, I look down and read East Jordan Ironworks. Woo! My heart is beating to the sound of nostalgic nights in that empty downtown. Under flickering lights, we watch the city breathing in and out. And I'm sitting on a curb. I look down and read East Jordan Ironworks.
Yeah, only the City Lines live, only on the drop-in. Thank you so much, dude.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it felt good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna get back into the interview now. That was just like the interlude, give you guys a little taste. But thank you so much. Cool. Yeah. Adjust mics.
Yep.
Get back into it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. And I do love the storytelling. I'll tell you, two of my favorites, most punk rockers like Johnny Cash. I like him for the storytelling elements. And I love a gentleman named Nick Cave. I like Nick Cave in the Bad Seeds.
Yeah.
And he's like the Dark Theater Johnny Cash. Every song is a story. And some are 14 minutes long. Right. I don't know how he remembers them. But the storytelling, I think, is so important. And I got that. I got that when you were playing, and I could see it. I was like visualizing different things, and so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. G-Migwich.
Yeah. So back to our interview. Following high school, you decided to attend Wayne State, which is where I went as well. And that was another sort of life-changing experience for you as well.
Yeah. So growing up in the suburbs of Detroit, it's you're very far removed from what's going on in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a lot of my high school friends were off to college to like Western or Central or Grand Valley, and I was like, oh, that's cool. You're gonna go to school in a cornfield, or cool. Maybe I'll come visit you sometime. You know,
or go back up to Michigan Tech, which is,
yeah.
It's not that much different, really.
No. So for me, like as I was telling you, I had trouble learning as a youngster. For me, part of the experience, like I feel like it just needed to be in the city. I needed to like get some of those like outside of the classroom educational experiences. You know, what was so great about Wayne State was it is like so diverse. There are students from all over the world there.
Yeah.
I worked in the admissions department there when I was like maybe a freshman, just stuffing envelopes, just a real easy little part-time gig, and they were admissions or decline letters, to get. And I remember mailing letters to places that I had never even heard of before. Kids that were coming to Detroit to learn at Wayne State, and I just remember thinking like, wow, this is really cool. Like I'm touching this envelope that's gonna go across the world, and this kid's gonna come here, and maybe I'm gonna see him like walking down Cass or whatever.
And culturally, the location of Wayne State, for what you're talking about, you have the Detroit Institute of Arts. You have the giant public library. To the left, by 5 minutes, you have the New Center area. You go down Woodward to the right about 10 minutes, and you have the Fox Theater in downtown. It's such a rad location.
Yeah, it is. So I studied fine art there, which is wild because I became a firefighter, and that's not necessarily part of our daily stuff as firemen, but it was a great place to study art. I loved all the instructors. Like several of my photography teachers had lived in the city for years, and like we'd go out to eat at the traffic jam and stuff after class, and Cass Cafe, and found our way to the old Miami sometimes.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I don't know. It was just huge. I really love that time. That's where I met my wife, Krista. We met in Old Main, which is that really cool old historic building that's at Cass and Warren.
Which when I went there, it was the rooms are numbered so ridiculously that you couldn't find anything in that building, and
Yeah.
it made no sense at all.
No, in fact, I think there's like 2 fourth floors somehow.
Right,
Like,
right. Nothing made sense.
No.
But it's a beautiful building.
Yeah. So yeah, like a huge part of my heart is tied to my experience there, and just some of those buildings, and that song I just performed was kind of about that time in my life, and specifically sitting on a curb and looking down in the sewer grates. If you look at any sewer grate in the state of Michigan, most of them I found have a branding on it that say East Jordan Iron Works. So they're made, in East Jordan, Michigan, which is up north. So I always had this weird connection, and I've been looking for these my whole almost adult life. Even in the city of Detroit, we walk down the street, and I look at a sewer cap or like those round circle caps that go in the center of the street. I'm like, I wonder where that one's made. And some of them are made in Detroit. It's like Detroit Foundry Company, but a lot of them are in East Jordan. So it's this weird tie that I have between Detroit and northern Michigan.
Yeah, and so many who are watching the show now, anytime they're in Detroit, they're going to be looking down at the grades, looking for East Jordan Ironworks. You brought up a couple of times your career now, which is fighting fires. When did you decide, like, running into burning buildings is going to be cool, man?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So when we lived up north, my dad was actually a volunteer firefighter, and he was on the ski patrol. So, like, I had seen him my whole life, like, always helping people. Like, he had his regular job working at the printing shop, but he had always had this drive to go and just help other people. So when I was at Wayne State, there's an ad in the paper for a local suburban fire department that was looking for applicants, and they would train you. They would pay for all your EMT schooling, your firefighter 1 and 2 certifications with the state. And my mom saw it in the newspaper. I was like, hey, Patrick, you should check this out. And I was like, I don't know. That seems like, how could I do that?
Right.
Put in an application, and I got hired. And it was kind of like a part-time academy, so I was able to go to Wayne State and do that. And then I was doing the fire training on the side. And, like, I instantly fell in love with it. Like, from the second I got to put on the uniform, I was like, oh man, like, this is great. Like, it, because what it stands for, like, ultimately, like, as a firefighter, your sole purpose is just to go and help people.
Yeah.
And what I found over the years is it's not always fighting fires. In some communities, yeah, like, I know the city of Detroit, really, they've had a fire problem for a long time, but sometimes it's just about, like, helping a senior person get out of their car and get a shopping cart as they walk into the grocery store. Like, if we have the rig with us and we're going to pick up food, like, we just do stuff like that all the time, and, like, you get all these small little wins that you kind of stack up as a firefighter, like just small little stuff like pumping up a kid's bike tires at the station. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I find it really fulfilling there, and we do EMS too, which is emergency medical service. So, like, that's a big part of what we do now. We do a lot of fire prevention work too. So, like, what I really enjoy doing is trying to connect with people outside of emergency situations.
Right.
Because oftentimes when we show up and your house is on fire, like, we're not like, hey, how's your day going? Like,
right.
Yeah, nice house. Often it's like, please get out of the way. Like, we gotta get in there as fast as we can. We stretch a line and put ourselves in danger.
But in those non-emergency situations, being able to connect with the community.
Yeah, it's the best part for me. Like, when I was younger, I definitely loved going to fires. I loved putting the hose on my shoulder and getting to the front door before everybody else and get my mask on. And I always wanted to be the first guy in. And so, like, maybe I've pulled off of that a little bit, but there are other guys younger than me that are doing that now. So maybe my focus is more on, like, community outreach and explaining what the fire department does in the community. I hope in the summertime run a youth academy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that has like totally changed the way that I think about being a public servant. Like, it's usually kids like 13 to 15 years old, and there's roughly 20 of them, and they can come from all over Metro Detroit. So some kids come from some tough neighborhoods, and some kids don't. But they all have an interest in fire, police work, or EMS work, and getting to work with those kids. It's just a week, but it's just so fulfilling.
Yeah.
And tiring. I tell the guys at the firehouse, like, I am more tired running around with those kids all day than, sometimes a day's work, responding to calls, just trying to keep up with them.
Well, and it's rad when you get to inspire somebody, no matter what age, and you see that inspiration happen. Mm-hmm. Like, you can watch it in their face or their actions where you actually connect. And that, I don't even think you can explain or scientifically measure what that feeling does for both parties.
Yeah, it's huge. It's like, if I can just give a little bit like that on a regular basis, it just feels good.
Mm-hmm.
I dig it. I'm at this like weird point in my career now where I've been on almost 15 years. So like I'm in like I'm not the young guy anymore.
Right.
I'm not the young fast dude.
And you're not the dude long in the tooth.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of have to find ways to like new ways to appreciate the job and like keep yourself excited about it, and like connecting with those kids is definitely, it's been great.
Well, and what you said is so rad. Like, when you started, you wanted to be the first one in the building, and then in now we're 15 years in, and your role is sort of shifting a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think the most successful people in any profession, I like to bring up Steve Yzerman. And if you're a Detroit native, you know who Steve Yzerman is. If you're not, he's one of the most legendary Detroit Red Wings ever to play the game in the National Hockey League. And throughout his career, his role shifted. And that's why he stayed with one team, because in the beginning, he was the goal scorer. In the middle, he was more of the defensive guy, playmaker. And then towards the end, he was that role player who would fill those roles. And that's why he did that. And that's what you reminded me of, where I want to be the point guy in the beginning. I'm young, I'm freaking virile, I want to fight fires. And now you're like, you know what? My view of public service has shifted a little bit, and getting the cat out of the tree or helping somebody unload their groceries is very important right now. In the next phase, who knows what that will be?
It's hard to
but
say,
but that transition and that growth is super rad.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's I haven't even thought about that. It's funny that you mentioned that. I remember like when you go through interviews for promotions and things like that, they say like, what's your leadership style, or like, how are you gonna motivate your people or whatever. And I always think about Steve Yzerman.
Yeah.
Like, it's just growing up watching him, he was often silent, but like he always went out, or not silent, but like he said the right thing at the right time, and he led by example a lot.
But you're saying he's silent. I think he wasn't the flamboyant guy who needed to be at the front of the camera all the time, and he was this humble, quiet leader.
That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
And now he's building teams all over and he's back in Detroit, and it's super cool. Super cool to see him here. But if you can grow, no matter where you're at in your life, if you're in a professional career, as we grow, as we age, as we gain more wisdom, our roles shift, and no matter what part of your life. And if you can grow and shift with those roles, I think the fulfillment is off the charts. And like with you, who knows? Maybe in 5 years you end up being the captain, or you move into something else. A wonderful friend of mine who's been with the Detroit firefighters for a while, he ended up going, I want to be arson investigator. He went to the police academy. Now he's the arson investigator. He loves helping people. He is just one of the most amazing humans. And I think you have to have some of that in you getting into that profession.
You do, yeah. That's a tough job, the arson thing. And like, I think another way another way that I'm sort of understanding this too about myself is like, there are other ways to help people other than just like the outward, like, I'm here to help you by extinguishing your fire. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Going into arson is hopefully you can solve it, right? And
Right.
figure out who burned your house down, and that way they can move forward and get past that tragedy, you know.
So rad,
Yeah.
so rad, and thank you for what you're doing, because it is such an important part, and I don't know too many people in my life that would say, yeah, I think running and burning buildings, that sounds like a good way to pay the bills.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of people, but it takes a special kind of person, and I believe you are one of those, as you're proving with your actions.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it feels good. Yeah.
And now let's get back to something a little more lighthearted, because you rocked a tune here. You talked about the city lines. How long you guys been together? How did that come together? Because you're making some pretty amazing music.
Yeah, thank you. So at some point, maybe about 3-ish years ago, I was in a rut. Maybe, kind of like what we're talking about, like trying to find a new way to redefine your career or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Well, I was sort of going through some periods where I'm like, wow, man, I'm like experiencing grief for the first time. And being a firefighter, you're exposed to a lot of gnarly things, and that goes for any sort of community that you work in. You could work in the nicest, affluent community there is, and there's still gonna be just weird things happen to human beings. And so I remember thinking, where's my guitars? Like, I think that I need to start figuring this out and put it out through the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started strumming on some songs and playing cover songs in my basement. And then I thought, well, maybe I don't know, I should start writing about some of the stuff I see at work and how that makes me feel. And so I started just taking notes throughout the day, on my cell phone, just cell phone notes, oh, this is a really weird thing that happened, and luckily it worked out, and I'll just make a little note about it. And then so somehow I started turning those into lyrics, and I reconnected with some old buddies from high school. My good buddy Brandon Benson, he was living in Dallas at the time. I started to learn how to record on the computer using GarageBand or whatever, and I'd send him these demos, and he was in Dallas, and he was like, oh wow, dude, these are great. We should do something with this. And at the time, I was like, I don't know if I want anybody to hear this. I'm cool with you hearing it, but let's just gotta keep it in house.
Right.
So anyway, he moves back into town. We recruited a drummer, a lead guitar player, and then we started work on an album. And fortunately, Brandon was working at a recording studio in Plymouth. It's called Plymouth Rock, and cannot say enough great things about our experience there. And we cut this album, and it was the most cathartic and often trying things that I've done. How is playing guitar and singing hard? It shouldn't be, right? It was harder for me than running into a house that's on fire. Wow. Yeah, it was difficult, going into a studio setting and putting out some of the words that I had sort of kept secret for a long time,
right.
And getting to a point where I was playing the guitar at a professional level that we could use, it was really difficult. But man, I'm just so proud of the record, and every time we play together, there is a synergy that I almost can't even describe.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of, it feels like when you finally land a trick that you've been working on a skateboard. You've tried a 360 flip 100 times, and it's just not going to work. It's never going to happen.
And then one time, if it's the connection of the neurons, if it's just the stars align that day, but you get it.
Yeah.
Get it.
Yeah, and your feet land square across the hardware.
Yeah.
And you're not whoa, almost kind of fall off,
Yep.
That counts. That's what playing music with those guys feels like to me. It feels like landing that trick 10 times in a row.
Yeah.
I know you play drums and playing at Stalefish, and I know that you know this feeling, but when you're in it and everybody's locked in, and you've maybe played the same song 3 times in a row, and finally that 4th time you're like, oh man,
yeah,
you sound like a rock and roll band,
right?
Just I don't know. It's
when that connection happens, and I believe in common consciousness.
Sure.
I'm a huge fan that if you get 4 or 5 people in the room with a similar goal, magic happens. One of my favorite things playing in bands is when you're jamming that first song for the first time. You got a riff, you bring it in, bass player's picking up on the riff, and you guys are just going after it. And then unannounced, nobody even knows, and you all change at the exact same time, or you have a stop and nobody talked about it and you guys do, and I'm getting goosebumps talking about it because it's such a crazy thing that just happens when you're in that room in that moment.
Yeah, it's like divine. It's like
Yeah.
I know that exact feeling too, because like maybe you know that pause might go there, like when you played it at home or whatever. You take it to the group or whatever, and you're playing it like, I don't feel like explaining every part of this song. Like I don't want to be like, okay, after the second verse we should do a little boom.
Right.
You know, you just kind of like, hey guys, I got this song. Let's see how it sounds, right? And everybody joins in. Yeah, and then like the second verse is about to start, and all of a sudden, and like everybody lands on the same thing, and I'm like, what?
Right.
Like, what just happened?
It's magic, man. It's magic.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah, when you can find guys that or girls that you do that with, there is something special about that. Now, how often do you guys practice? Do you practice regularly? Like what? How often?
Yep. So we get together usually once a week, and we call it City Lions Night. And the three of us in the group are dads, and we all have full-time jobs, and it's hard to carve out time to do anything, right? But we found a way to make like 2 hours work on a Sunday night, and that's been great. Like I really often look forward to that. Our bass player's on tour right now with his other group. They're called We Are the Union, and they're on tour with Eve 6 right now. So we've been practicing without him, and can't wait to get back playing with him too when he's back in town. And yeah, it's one of those things where it's a cathartic, sort of therapeutic. Even when it's not going right, like even like when you feel like you're not playing well, it still you're putting like energy out into the world, and yeah, it feels incredible. You know?
Well, and so much, and this goes with skateboarding, it goes with drop-in hockey, it goes with so many things that we've talked about. The things that end up being so important are not the actual activity. It's the camaraderie with your friends. It's the, talking trash. It's that connection. I mean, the music is why you all show up, but everything else that comes with it, it almost ends up being as important.
I think you're right. Yeah, it's everything that I've known in my life thus far has been like team-based. Like, I grew up playing hockey. Well, you got to figure out a way to fit in on the team, right?
Right.
What's your role? In firefighting, you don't do anything alone. Like you're part of a crew of four, and so I've really enjoyed that, and like that sort of translates to being in a band. This sort of mentality, this pack mentality. You know, we succeed together and we fail together type notion. You know?
And then if somebody is dragging their feet a little bit, the other guys pick them up, or it is rad.
Yeah,
it's rad.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Now, around town, what kind of gigs are you guys playing, and do you have anything scheduled coming up?
Yep, we do. So we got a gig later this month on May 21st, and it's for the Northville Skate Park Project.
And if you guys watch the show, we talked all about it. If you haven't, go back and watch the Northville Skate Park Project show here on the drop-in, because Jeff Scroggs and Gabriella Dune were on the show. We talked all about, and ironically, it's called the Drop-In Beer Fest. He called and asked beforehand, but you guys will be playing that day.
Yep. So that's an event that's near to my heart, because like that will be my new home skate park.
Yeah.
It'll be a little bit closer than Riley, and so I'm super stoked to be playing there. Me and Jack Spivey, our lead guitar player and songwriting partner of mine, we're going to be playing it acoustically. So that's going to be kind of fun because it's an outdoor event. And then after that, we got a gig July 16th at Ladder 4 Detroit, which is a new wine bar that opened in a retired firehouse. And like that is the culmination of like all things that I like, to get to go play rock and roll in an old firehouse. Yeah, so check them out.
And where is that? Where is that at in the city?
Yeah, it's on the west side, west of Corktown, maybe not even 5 minutes, just north of Michigan Avenue, kind of by like MLK Boulevard there. It's kind of
So it's on the fringes of downtown. It's right in the middle of everything.
yeah, it's close. Yeah. It's and you could come check out the gig and go downtown if you wanted, or vice versa. We're still working on some of the other bands, but Twin Deer is gonna be playing with us, and they're really cool indie pop, dreamy, really reverby, female fronted group that we really like, and then we're playing North Center Brewing in downtown Northville, an acoustic gig, August 26th. It's a Friday, so we're gonna.
Cool. And we'll go over it more before we end the show. But if folks watch and want to keep up with you, what's the best way to keep up with the band?
Oh, yeah. So Instagram is our main thing. We do have a website. It's just thecitylinesmusic.com. But Instagram is the best way to get a hold of one of us to, if you want to play with us, or if you want to say, or write us a message and say, hey, I'm a firefighter and I like guitars too. Like, that'd be great.
Right.
Connect to it. I'd love to connect with anybody. It's like what this whole thing is about is just sort of making connections with people, you know.
And on Instagram, it's at the City Lines Music, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Well, do you ever get it? Do you get to skate much these days? I had to ask you.
Yeah.
Do you get out on your board at all?
So not nearly as much as I would like to, but like I am sort of rediscovering skateboarding now through my daughter. Isla is like 2.5, and every time we go outside and go in the garage to get her soccer ball or her wagon or something, she's like, Isla skateboard? I'm like, yep. Isla can skateboard. Let's do it. And so we got her a helmet.
Oh, cool.
And I usually just put her up on the board and hold her hands, and we skate back and forth on the sidewalk, and then she'll get tired of that, and she'll be like, Daddy skateboard? So then I'll do a manual down the sidewalk and ollie over my helmet or something.
Right.
Doing presser, but yeah, it's tough. Particularly with working at the firehouse and
right.
Doing this music thing and being a present husband and dad. Yeah. It's crazy. But yeah, I'm particularly excited about the notion that there might be a skate park within a few minutes of my house.
Right.
With this Northville thing, and I'm looking forward to that because I will make time available for that.
Well, and if your young lady decides to take a shine to it, I mean, the women around the world are just so amazingly talented. And mark my words, there's going to be a time soon where there's not a men's and a women's division because it's going to be like this. I really think I watched a lot of over the last few years, with the Do Action Sports Tour and the Olympics and all that stuff. Just that line is getting in with kids being able to get into it younger, to have it so accessible as it is now. Man, it's so rad.
That's a great point. I think skateboarding, right now, it seems very exciting. I follow some skateboarders on Instagram, and I'm in barracks. Some of the stuff that I'm seeing, I just can't even comprehend how these skaters are figuring out these tricks.
It's video game for real.
Right. Yeah. I'm stoked on it, and I really hope my daughter really takes a liking to it, and if she likes it, she does, and that's great. And I'm gonna support her 1,000% on that because she's growing up in a neighborhood where there are curbs.
Yeah. Well, Pat, we're coming down to the end of it. Yeah. I want to thank you once again for coming on. You are welcome here anytime. Maybe one day we can have the whole band in here, and we can do we can rock out. Yeah. But we just went over it, but can you go over it one more time how people can keep up to date with the City Lines?
Yeah, so check us out at City Lines Music on Instagram, and then citylinesmusic.com is our website. Shoot me a line. Like I said, I love connecting with people. I love talking about guitars. I love talking about firefighting and punk rock and songwriting, and so hit us up. We're local dudes, just kind of having fun with this thing.
Yeah. One more thing, if anybody wants to buy the record, what's the easiest way to buy the record online?
Yep. So we're gonna have them in person, vinyl at our shows. Those should be coming in shortly. You can pre-order it from our website, citylinesmusic.com, and Yeah, like we're on Spotify too.
That's the digital download, stuff like that.
And we're also on Bandcamp. And I need to be better about pushing social media stuff and stuff like that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Please check it out. Go listen to the album and shoot me a note about it. Would love to hear what you think about it either way.
Right on. Well, thank you once again, and you agreed to close the show with another cut from the City Lines. So thank you guys so much. And to close this week's show, my man Pat's gonna close us out with some more City Lines, man.
Let's do it.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I have to say one more thing. This little figure here, I didn't want to say anything in the middle at the beginning because everybody would stare at it. But my buddy James said, he's like, you know, all your skateboards got a Frankenstein guy. I'm going to a monster convention. I'm going to see if I can find an action figure. And he did. And then he made a Garold Vallie fingerboard for Frankenstein to hold. So I want to thank you, James. It's freaking rad, and I appreciate it. So that's all. But whenever you're ready, brother.
Yeah.
Let's get this one here.
Yeah, I love that. It's super cool.
So rad.
Yeah.
I had the crazy Frankenstein connection.
I love it.
Or collection
Yeah,
over
yeah.
the years. This is Pat Deneau from the City Lines.
This song's called Lightning Bolt. Oh, I feel my heartbeat in my head. I ran down the store to get some payment. Hanging around this town since I was a kid. I'm finally digging up some inspiration. Oh, I know, I can already tell how this one is gonna go. Tomorrow I'll crawl back to work and try not to be such a jerk. I can't make any guarantees. Yes, anyway, I make it to the store. I forget what I came all the way down here for. I grab some Bell's beer and better made chips. Spend the afternoon trying to write a hit. Oh, got a couple good ideas. None of them seem to make it down to my pen. I guess that's the fun in this. I'm trying to capture a bolt of lightning. I'm chasing my tail. You can't appreciate a win if you don't know how it feels to fail. Well, maybe I'm getting good at that. Gotta be good at something, right? I got a song stuck in my head. Something about being lost in the supermarket. So banging around up there all day. I left the front door wide open and tried to let just a little bit of light in. I watched the frost take over the glass. Turn signal clicks on my metronome as I sing along to an unwritten song, and it goes like this. Got a couple good ideas. None of them seem to make it down to my pen. I'm trying to capture a bolt of lightning. I'm chasing my tail. You can't appreciate a win if you don't know how it feels to fail. But baby, I'm getting good at that.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thanks, man.
This is Pat. I am Garold, and this is The Drop In.